What's up guys, welcome back to another video. Today I want to go over my top 4 mistakes in archery. I see these mistakes across the board when I'm going to archery shoots, you know, total archery challenge, indoor shoots. I see it in videos and photos, as well as just shooting with people, alongside people. And it's the most common mistakes that I see come up, and some of them are talked about quite a bit and others are not, but all in all it comes down to, you're gonna hear me say the word a lot, consistency. Everything about archery is consistency. So anyway, let's just dive right into it. My first archery mistake is gonna be your draw length is either too long or too short. When you come into your anchor, you wanna make sure that you can find your anchor right away when you come into your shot. So you go to draw, and I'm right there in my anchor, okay? So when I'm coming back, I want everything already set. I'm back in my anchor and I'm ready to shoot, right? So the mistake that people run into with too long of a draw length, and I'm just gonna show you here, I'm gonna compress my shoulder just to kind of replicate it, but too long of a draw length, you come back and you're way back here, right? And you can't find any anchor back here, and if you do want to get your nose to the string, you're really having to turn your head and come back. But otherwise your nose is in front of the string, your peep's all up in your face, and that peep housing is just, that peep is just as big as can be on your face, and it's really blowing out the housing of your sight, so you can't really align things very well. You can't get a consistent anchor back here, and it just really messes things up. And along with that, you end up becoming prone to a lot of frustration because things are just not consistent. So yeah, you don't want to deal with too long of a draw length. Here's what it looks like when you have too short of a draw length. You come into your shot, I'm gonna really overextend to do this, but I mean, same thing, you've got like nothing to anchor to, right? My face isn't anchoring on anything. You really want to have that consistent facial anchor where you've got your hand is just right against your jaw, or if you're shooting a trigger release, it might be right behind your jaw, and then your nose just barely touches the string. So again, look at it when I come back, right here, and I am already in my anchor. Just barely touching my jawbone, barely touching the string, I'm ready to shoot. So again, one of the first common mistakes I see is having a setup that is either too long of a draw length or too short of a draw length, which completely messes up your anchor points. So a way to correct this would be, if you know how to tune your bow and you know how to set things up, likely this isn't an issue for you, but just make sure you set your draw length correctly so you can hit all of your anchor points and be consistent with every shot. Otherwise, I would say maybe try to find a pro shop who really knows what they're doing with setting bows up and setting them up specifically for you. Go in there, talk to them, just let them know, hey, I think I'm either a little too long a draw or too short of a draw length. What do you guys think? Can you help me get this changed? And most bows these days have quite a bit of variance in their draw length in the mods. You can typically get it just really dialed in. So yeah, get it corrected that way and then should be good. All right, moving into mistake number 2 that I see. It's not as talked about as much, but I think it is a very large and common issue when shooting archery, and that is frustration. Just getting over frustrated and breaking down in your shot and just mentally throwing everything out the window. I see it so many times when I'm at the range or just shooting with people and somebody shanks a shot, right? They make a bad shot and they just completely break down. Like they almost want to throw their bow on the ground. They're just, I mean, just heated, right? That is about the worst thing that you can do for your next arrow, right? So your next arrow gets knocked up and you're still in that mentality of just like, I can't believe I shanked that shot. you know, I'm better than that, whatever it might be, and you shank a second shot. And you're like, why did that happen? It's like, well, you've completely broke down in your game. I've seen it time and time again. And unfortunately, you're just kind of shooting yourself in the foot over and over. So you've got to be able to take control of each and every arrow that comes out of that bow. Mentally breaking down, becoming super frustrated is really, really detrimental to your next shot. And I don't think it's talked about quite enough. So I wanted to mention it on this video, but I just see it a lot. So anyway, a good way to help take care of that is, you know, say you do take a shot and something goes wrong, you punch the trigger or whatever, and that arrow glances off the target and shanks off to the left and gets buried in the dirt. Now you got to go find it and you're getting frustrated. Before you knock up that second arrow, just really take a breather. Just stop, take a deep breath, try to correct in your head what just happened. Why did that one arrow do what all the other arrows, you know, all the other arrows are in the target? Why'd that one arrow do that? And if you can figure that out, maybe it was because you had really bad anticipation, you punched the trigger, or you just pulled the shot, you got really fatigued and fell apart. At least you know that's what happened. So when you take a breather and you stop and you reevaluate, then you can mentally prepare yourself for the next arrow. So anyway, just make sure that you're mentally checked in with each and every shot. Reset with every shot and just stay dialed. So even in a tournament setting, I see a lot of guys that at the highest professional level, these guys come up to their targets, they get ready, they go, they pull back, they anchor, and they're, I mean, dialed. They're ready to shoot. And then all of a sudden, they let their bow down. That's what they're doing. They're mentally resetting. At some point in that shot process, they either mentally started kind of falling apart in the shot process, didn't feel right about it, or they physically started to get fatigued. The pin was really starting to float just a lot. So they let their bow down, they mentally regroup, they just get back in their position, and then they go and make their shot. And a lot of times it's a better shot because they let down. So archery mistake number 2, like I say, don't get frustrated. Just mentally try to keep in check with every single shot. And if you are getting that frustrated, then it's time to hang the bow up and go inside, check out, you know, do something else. Come back to it later when you're not as, you know, heated. I just see that a lot. Guys break down and then they just keep winging horrible shots. And then they think it's their setup. They think the sight's off. They think the rest is out of tune. They think there's something wrong with, you know, the bow itself, the strings and cables, whatever. They start making excuses for why they're mentally breaking down and their frustrations have gotten the best of them. So for the third archery mistake that I see, and this is a very common mistake and very widely talked about across archery, but still somehow is one of the most widespread common mistakes. And that is just absolutely choking that grip out. So I've seen guys come up to the line and I mean, they just subconsciously do it, and they come up and they get ready and they just, bam, they're just locked in, right? They're just white knuckling. I mean, cutting off blood flow to the front of their fingers. And they're like that at full draw. And it's just creating all sorts of pressure on that riser, and torque is just going everywhere. So it's very inconsistent way of gripping your bow. So with that, there's kind of 2 parts. One, there is over gripping your bow, which is just that. It's just absolutely just choking that thing. That, I mean, you can even see that amount of movement. That's me just gripping my hand together, just flexing my hand. And that's making that riser move so much. So you want to make sure that you have a nice loose grip. And the second part of that is the grip consistency and placement, where that grip is going to be on your hand. So if I'm standing here in the shooting position and I'm looking at my target and I put my hand out just naturally my hand just kind of falls like this, right? So you can see my eyes are pretty much through the V of my pointer finger and my thumb. Right here on your hand, you've got your lifeline, and you want to make sure you're just putting right on the inside of that lifeline, you're putting the grip of your bow right there. So when I've got the grip of my bow right on the inside of that lifeline, my hand is basically just sitting out here like this, okay? That's pretty much my shooting position when I'm at full draw. I'm holding the bottom of the cam so I don't have to grip the bow with this, but that's the shooting position at full draw for me. These fingers, I've basically just got my middle finger here, just barely touching the riser. And these three fingers basically don't do anything. They just kind of rest on the front of that riser. And all that pressure from the bow is being put right there, okay? So that's where you want to grip your bow. And you don't want to be inconsistent with it. You don't want to grip it slightly like this, or slightly like this, or like this one time, but this the other time, closed face this way open like this. You want to be very consistent with your grip right on the inside of that lifeline every single time. And you can even see when I'm standing like this, like I say, I mean, everything is down the pipe, right in line with my eyes, that grip, my elbow back here. You want everything center line. So like I say, I just see that a lot. I know it's widely talked about, but I continue to see it. So I wanted to mention it on this as well. All right, so archery mistake number 4 is punching the trigger and creating anticipation in the shot because of that. So anytime you create anticipation in the shot, the human brain cannot react fast enough to just have it be perfect every single time. So a lot of times you start creating this anticipation where if your pin is not perfectly on that, on the mark, if your pin's not perfectly on the mark, you create this anticipation between your bow arm and your trigger, that when you've got all that movement right here to come down on that trigger, in that time you're pushing your bow up, pushing it to the left, dropping down into it really fast and trying to get that pin where you want it by the time this trigger goes off. And mentally, we just cannot react that fast. The shot's going off when it's going off, right? So by doing that, I mean, you're just creating so much anticipation with every single shot, and that's how a lot of target panic develops. One thing I just like to kind of drive home with everybody I'm helping with archery is really set yourself up to where when you've got this bow back and you're in your anchor, you can just put your, if you're shooting a thumb button, you can just put your thumb button on that trigger without it going off. So don't set it hot enough that just breathing on this trigger is gonna make it go off, because that can create a lot of anticipation in itself. Is like, if I barely even touch this trigger, it's gonna fire. So what I mean by punching the trigger, I mean, I'm gonna demonstrate it on this thumb button, but you've got the trigger right here and you're just, I mean, you're out here. I'm just gonna shoot an arrow like it. I hate doing this, but show you what it looks like. So I'm in my anchor. Come down a little bit. I'm in my anchor. That's how I normally would start setting up, but I'm out here, okay? And I'm in my target and I just, see, I literally just shot, I literally just shot that deer target in the head, okay? I can't physically punch the trigger anymore, like from way out there and like make a good shot. There's no way I can do it. It's just too much anticipation. My pin's floating around and I'm just, I mean, it blows everything off. So, I mean, yeah, that's bad. To correct that, I utilize back tension. That could be a whole nother video series, and I'll probably make another video series on it because I think it's a pretty important way to shoot your bow. Anyway, I'm gonna show you what that looks like. Basically, When I'm at full draw, I'm just taking my thumb, putting my thumb on this trigger, and I am pulling with my back. I'm pulling my back muscles like this, and I'm pulling through my shot, and that's what's gonna activate that trigger. It's not me just whamming it from all the way out here, left field, bam. It's me just wrapping my finger around that trigger, getting deep in it, and allowing that shot to happen on its own without me like mentally hammering that trigger. I'm letting that pin float and I'm allowing that shot to happen. So that's it. So archery mistake number 4, try not to punch the trigger. It'll create a lot of anticipation. Even if you're not one who wants to shoot with back tension, that's okay. Not everybody shoots with back tension, but try to get used to really digging your finger or thumb into the trigger, whether you shoot a finger release or thumb release, digging that in and just squeezing. Squeeze that trigger till it goes off. Don't come all the way out here and wham, because I mean, you just can't react in time. You'll always be throwing that thing around. So anyway, try not to punch the trigger. Try to get into it deep. Easy pull, and you'll be a lot better off that way. So that is it for my top 4 archery mistakes. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, please remember to hit that subscribe button. I've got a ton more videos coming up, a lot like this, with tips and tricks, how-tos, as well as hunts. We got shed hunting coming up, we got turkey season coming up, we got bear season coming up, and then just a summer full of total archery challenges, other archery shoots, and just a lot of fun stuff. So anyway, make sure you hit that subscribe button. Appreciate y'all watching, and we will catch you on the next one. Peace.